groupings and then linking them up, as Linda pointed out. And I think that there was conscious effort to destroy any attempt to build coalitions and linkages. Some of that was internal, because in some places people were building their own specialized or particular consciousness, and that had to mature before it could connect with other people's consciousness. And in the normal circumstances, perhaps they would have been able to link up in different ways. And I mean that with regard to various elements in the Black Liberation Movement and their conscious decisions to not have any relationship with whites or Latinos or anybody else. And that really has remained on our college campuses, where there are people who are careerists, and their careers are based on those separate constituencies. I'm one of the people that put together Black Studies. And I've been to Black Studies campuses where their Black Studies program don't have anything to do with the community, because that's a different constituency. They won't have anything to do, Black communities. They don't have anything to do with Latinos. They won't have anything to do with people who are involved in various LGBT activity. So that means that just means an area you have to work on. You have to become conscious about, as I think Linda pointed out. Second thing is cooperatives. There was the freedom, there were several things in Mississippi. There was the Freedom Labor Union that people were trying to put together. There was the Freedom Labor Union. There were a number of cooperative activities that were going on in the early part of the 60s. But let me reach back a little bit. In Montgomery, Alabama, the organization that buttressed the work that the men were getting publicity for were all social cooperatives. When I was growing up in Texas and Louisiana, if you left one part of Texas, like Marshall, and went to Dallas, your family was always connected to some kind of cooperative society, some kind of society for your protection. When there was a fire that took place in Laurel, there wasn't any fire trucks that were going to go down there and put out the fire. So what you saw was that people showing up from the ringing of the bell. There would be 100 or 200 people coming together with buckets. And there were people who were bringing their own wagons full of water. So what I'm trying to suggest is there have been cooperatives. People had to cooperate if you were Black in America. You cooperated or you died. So, because when people were hungry, if you look at Elvis Presley's family and Bill Clinton's family, it was Black people who fed them when they were starving to death. I'm talking about the families, not the present generation. What kind of cooperatives now? My principal work is building hospitals for poor people and for people who have suffering from Agent Orange. We put together the first hospital in Ben Am, near Da Nang in Vietnam. There are probably in the area that we're working in that particular area, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 cooperatives. Almost all the economy of Vietnam is organized around cooperatives. So being involved in cooperatives is not something that you enlist in. It is a way of life. My view about cooperatives in this country is that to the extent, I've been involved in cooperative movements since I've been involved in the movement, but to the extent that cooperatives understand that there's a fundamental contradiction between the capitalist system and any cooperative system, that's one thing. So that means they have to engage. To the extent that the cooperative movement, now I'm talking about the movement, not a particular co-op here or there or the other, tries to build cooperatives as a way to insist on being different, separating itself from the very community, from other communities, small business communities, and church communities, various other kinds of communities, then I would challenge those. I think that cooperatives are a tool, an instrument, one of the one of the important elements in rebuilding the movement in this country. I don't think that cooperatives are the only element that's geared toward building. You don't make that your life's work if you're revolutionary. What you do is that you try to build whatever institutions, whatever instruments you can, as Amilcar Cabral and his people did PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau. They built cooperatives as a way of pulling in people to feed them, to clothe them, to give them work, et cetera, et cetera. But their whole thing was ultimately to get rid of the Portuguese and establish your own nation. So that's what I'm saying is, in my mind, that's the difference between some cooperatives, or some cooperative movements, I should say, and cooperative movements that I've seen and have been a part of around the world.
Got a question right there.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm a high school teacher in Oakland, and I was recently discussing with some students the fact that the Oakland Unified School District recently got an armored tactical truck from the Pentagon. San Diego Unified School District got some grenade launchers from the Pentagon and their excess military hardware. And so some students are talking about like trying to organize against that. In relationship to that, I'm wondering, if you could imagine a movement to get these school districts to give back these war, these weapons and these means, we can imagine that would be a concession on their part, right? How do you all see the relationship between concessions like that and maybe in your own organizing work and broader other goals, like maybe consciousness or things like that? How do you see that?
Excellent question. Fantastic question, my brother. Fantastic question. Hard. You're in the schools. You won't take it long. No, not yet.
No, I can't think of an answer right now.
Enjoy.
Well, I'll be very brief. This is a situation that's happening, or people are becoming aware of it all over the country. In terms of schools getting all this armament from the Department of Defense.
In cities.
Yeah.
In cities.
And cities. And so, kind of like we did here in Oakland, with the whole question of the, urban shield. We have to make that an issue. I would think, particularly around the schools, we have to figure out who should be interested in this. And I would start at the very beginning, to be parents. So that, because their kids are going to be the major object of all this military equipment. So in terms of even just looking at self-interest, you obviously have a lot of young people who are ready to move, and that should be developed. But I'm saying is you have to think about what are the broader coalitions around that. And there's the parents, there are churches, there's various other groups that have to be mobilized to make this an issue that will not go away. And for police and cities have to say, why do we need tanks? Why do we need tractor? I forgot what.
Armored cars.
Yeah, armored cars. Thank you. I remember they were trying to give it up in Berkeley for that, and drones. These are not things that need to be in school. There's some people saying that maybe in letters to the editors, but it's not a movement yet. And so I'm saying, what we need to do is to figure out who would be part of that movement to lead it, and basically give it a core, and focusing on that particular issue, and tying it into militarization of the entire society. And that's where I would start.
Can I say one quick thing? San Leandro just received $500,000 from the government, and the San Leandro School District. And so they're going to put they're going to put police in now the middle schools. They already have them in the high schools. Well, I do recall Mission High School way back in the 60s really kicked up a lot of storm when they were going to put undercover officers in the Mission High School. That's in San Francisco. Oh yeah, and the student stage. It was historic. The students in Mission High School staged a walkout and created a movement in the whole mission. You know, out of that comes the Mission Rebels. Out of that comes all kinds of groupings. Out of that energy. And I, you know, I'm trying to organize on the campus, and I mean, it was like the Latino students at San Francisco State on one weekend come back from being passive, very passive. They trying to get schooled, they're trying to be middle class, this and that and the other. Those high school students raised them up. That's how we got such a powerful Mexican American and Latino student community, Chicano student movement at San Francisco State's campus. It was the students at Mission High who raised them up by walking out and risking their lives, their livelihood, their families, the conservatism of the Catholic Church. They walked on out, stirred it up. But what they had, I guess, I'm not sure, was that some people who are among those students, or their teachers, or whoever, who suddenly they were organized. They knew which way to go, where to go, how much pressure to put on the police. I mean, they were incredible models. These high school students were incredible models, and we used that model as part of our building the movement at San Francisco State, which ended up carrying on the longest student strike in the history of this country. Mission High School, look to that's a heavy historic example that you can look at.
Make it plain, Jay.
But on another note, you can do that in Oakland too. I mean, the problem with organizing Oakland right now is there's so many charters, and the union in so many ways has been decimated. But if you have like Youth Together, Youth Speaks, the nonprofits that are in Youth Uprising, the nonprofits that are connecting with students outside programs that are in the schools, teachers unions, even, organizing we walked from East Oakland to save a school. We didn't win, but to save a school from East Oakland out on 86th Avenue. Everybody just walked straight down Foothill, down to the Board of Ed, had a whole march there. You can do it. It's harder now because there's so many small schools, there's so many charters, but if you get the comprehensive schools, if you get McClymonds and Castlemont and Oakland High, Oakland Tech, Skyline, you meet those groups, you could do a walk out there for that. Also, in terms of just behind the scenes, how the school district gets this is beyond me without any this is the first time I heard of it, but not even a school board meeting to discuss it. I mean, every school board member should be called, they should be inundated with protest letters anyway, so they at least know they're getting some heat behind this. Because we organize together. If that gets organized, I swear everybody in this room would probably be in the march. Because militarization of the schools is just absolutely obscene.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask a few more questions.
Yeah, can I add just one more piece to this though? I want to just remind people that we have to think about broad forces. I mean, African Americans were not victorious in the Southern Freedom Movement, or what was sometimes called the Civil Rights Movement, just by themselves. They had a lot of other forces around them to basically do that. I tell my friends, my Latino friends, particularly around immigrant rights, is Latinos are not going to win the struggle for immigrant rights in this country. We have to have a really broad movement. First of all, other immigrant groups in this country, which we don't have in the immigrant rights movement right now, as well as people who are not immigrants, because that's what wins. And so there's a difference between the leading force of something and the broader coalition. And I would just recommend, if you want more clarity on that, read a little bit of Ho Chi Minh or Amilcar Cabral.
Have you been calling on women?
All right, you can go. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
That's right, fortunately.
There you go.
Well, yeah.
I was trying to go to prime.
Yeah, but I haven't been hearing women's voices.
Go ahead.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Transformative. Thank you very, very much. All right, this is geared to Phil, is that right? And Jimmy? Because I know that Linda will be on board. I'm a teacher. I do what Linda does. I mentor new teachers. And what I would like to suggest is, under the guise of Black History Month, if you will pardon that terrible expression, but I would like, well, because it's only 1 month, at least it's, but anyway, what I would like to suggest, and I would seriously work on this, and I know Linda would, is to go to the OEA, that's the teachers union, present some of this information, and set up a whole series of showings of the film, and then having you there to talk about what went way beyond the film. So I really would I'm asking if you will you do this? Will you work on this? I mean, Linda and I can do the organizing, but would you be willing to be a part of this? Bill?
Well, that's
I think we have to talk about how it gets done.
Okay.
And, I mean, I would be willing to come to a meeting to discuss that with a broader group of people. I mean, I say that because there are so many different little initiatives that are moving around in Oakland particularly, and probably the Greater Bay. And it's hard to say that just quickly that I would be willing to put my feet in just one. Or so.
Well, but see, this would go to the teachers union. You would present at the teachers rep council.
My sister, yes.
Here we go.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna get one more question.
I got one right here. You gonna let this
Gerald.
people speak?
Okay. Hey, thank you very much. Excellent job. But more importantly, I want people to understand, I've been to about 6, celebrations of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 or the Freedom Summer this year. But what was different tonight, and I hope you leave with this understanding, was the analysis of the Democratic Party. I'm serious, because that's the point. The ruling class party that some of us appear to be willing to follow into yet another war right now. So let's understand that role has been thoroughly ventilated and exposed here. I'll give you an example. The Democratic Party came out of their hole in the ground, and they actually had 2 events that I went to, one in Berkeley, one in Oakland, celebrating Nelson Mandela's birthday. So I said, I got to see what the hell's going on here. So I go, and here these fools, the Democratic Party is celebrating Nelson Mandela's birthday, but just stop and think. Nelson Mandela was arrested under whose administration? The Johnson administration ordered the CIA to give information to the South African government, 27 years in prison. The Democrats! But here they are pretending that here they've celebrated. They should not get away with things like that. And like they try to pretend that they played such a positive role during the Civil Rights Movement. No, not at all. Here we see, thanks to these brothers and sisters, they explain what really happened. And that's what matters, to understand that Democratic Party is the enemy of working people. And a lot of people say, well, what about all the celebrity Democrats we know, that come around and run their mouth, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, a lot of blacks did join the Democratic Party. I remember, I was a very young militant at the time when they abandoned us, because that's what they did. They defected to the Democratic Party, and it hurt the Black Liberation Movement. One of the problems with the Black Panthers is that our average age was something like 17. Now stop and think about that a minute, what that really means in terms of one's ability to intervene in this world that young, without some wisdom and people who had been around a while.
Right,
The Democratic Party has proven that indeed it is a graveyard, it's an elephant's graveyard for the Black Liberation Movement and the left. Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up real quick. I'm gonna give it to Phil to give one quote, and then we'll break.
Yeah, since we were talking about the Mississippi Freedom Summer Project, I wanted to end with a quote from Kwame Ture Stokely Carmichael, because I think it's a very good quote that's symbolizing. And this is Stokely talking, or Kwame. In many ways, the Mississippi Summer Project was a turning point for a whole generation of us. It was certainly the boldest, most dramatic, and traumatic single event of the entire movement. It certainly had the most far-reaching effect for national party politics, for the activist college generation, for the state of Mississippi and the movement there, and especially for Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee as an organization. After the summer of '64, none of those would ever be the same again.
All right, so that concludes our program.
Come back to me.
No, it's okay.
Come back to me.
It's okay, we'll talk afterward. But just again, thank you all for coming. This forum was sponsored by Advance and Struggle. Please sign the sign-up sheet if you would like more information. We appreciate you all for coming. I want to thank all the speakers. Let's give them a round of applause. The sign-up sheet is in the back, Javier. It's in the back. It's getting passed around right now. We'll make sure it gets to you. You can see myself, Javier.
He's the president.
I don't work there. I feel like we get together. I never had a problem. I'm not good at I don't know local politics. I just have to feel it. And I don't know see as well from that shit. But I will do what I get me there. I'll do it.
What I'm suggesting is we're going to open it up here. That we would put together a presentation for the Oakland and people who want to have the film or a portion of the film and you can send it and get it. Come and talk with the kids. I know. That's the mission that I have.
I'm not trying to I'm just saying, yes. Yes. I don't know what I can do after that.
I mean that. What? Yeah. I want to show you something. I'm talking about building an infrastructure. This won't work until I get a computer.
I'll give you my card.
You live on 57.
That's what I'm saying. So I'll be around.
So you were signaling to him, right?
Oh, I thought you were signaling.
You were signaling to him.
I was not.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Because we know Phil. Are you made with reason? There's my
I was so ready to wait.
I mean,
I know, that's good. You should always get that when it's happening.
it does, but the language is I haven't seen you in a long time. Oh, hey. Yeah. Wait a minute. Joseph, of course. Right.
I'm going to go over and ask Jimmy about this question.
Bill, with dodging you on this issue of nonviolent surveillance. Well, let me just say this. Okay, here, just for one small point, then you talk to it. When somebody lit an American flag inside the Oakland City Hall, and then of course it got on all the television sets all over the country, what do you think sponsored that?
That's why I wrote the activism exactly right. Activism entry point addresses exactly that
Well, I'm